Leanne, thank you very much indeed, and a very warm welcome to you all at home. Yes, we are live at the Sandton Convention Centre, and this is the venue for the latest in the series of New Age business briefings brought to you by the SABC, and today sponsored by Transnet. And as Leanne was saying, we have the Minister of Public Service and Administration, Ms. Lindiwe Sisulu, in the hot seat, and you have an opportunity to engage with Minister in a few minutes' time. I'm going to be asking her to join us on stage, and she's going to speak to us, and then from there the conversation begins in earnest, and you can join that conversation easily via Twitter or email at Morning Live SABC or morninglive at sabc.co.za or hashtag TNABizBrief. Now, why should you be involved in this conversation? Well, pretty much because every single day of our lives, we are involved in one way or another with the public service, whether it's through education, through health, engagement with the police, whether you want to register your birth, get an ID book, or some form or another, public transport, our roads. So the public service touches our lives right across the country every single day with a service, I think, excess of 1.6 million people, a huge amount of people that are engaging with us on a daily basis. The Minister has a huge responsibility and is pivotal in making sure that government takes over with the people that are engaged with us. So to tell us a little bit about the vision of what these 1.6 million people will be doing for us and how they're going to do it, it's my great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome the Minister of Public Service and Administration, Ms. Lindiwe Sisulu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ndoro. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, senior managers of my administration and the parastatals that report to it, our viewers at home. The kind of society and the kind of government that we dreamt of is poignantly and exceptionally well documented in the Freedom Charter. The same ideals and dreams encapsulated in the Freedom Charter led to the heroism and sacrifice and ultimately to the watershed Rivonia arrests, whose 50th anniversary we commemorated yesterday. These were the dreams of our fathers. These were the dreams that have kept Nelson Mandela so resilient and so phenomenally strong. The dreams of a democratic, efficient, capable, caring state driven by committed cadres of government. Cadres who burn with even a fraction of the passion of our founding fathers. In order to carry on this dream of a world where we've redressed all our past injustices and can strive to create a better life for our people. A dream that one day we will be able to create in all its glory for all our people to provide the society that we all fought for. Public administration, which is my responsibility, is the administrative infrastructure of the state, and the public servants are the people who deliver the services that the state provides. Its job is very well described in Chapter 10 of the Constitution. And now, for the past 20 years in our democracy, we've been trying to instill and consolidate this infrastructure. Because unless we get it right, none of our plans for this country will be deliverable on scale and at the rate at which we want it delivered. This, in short, and covered peripherally by Mr. Ndoro, is what the state does. This is what the capacity of the state means to all of us. And just to mention a few, the state is what supports and regulates the functioning of a 3 trillion economy and industry in this country. The state, The administration of the state ensures that our children are schooled and equipped with education. The public service ensures the issue of identity documents and maintains the integrity of the system and the data of over 52 million people and registers the births of over 1 million children every year. It manages our water resources. It manages our huge infrastructure. It maintains our roads and transport networks on a daily basis for your mobility needs. It administers and pays social grants to over 16 million recipients monthly and on time. It maintains our borders and our points of entry on a 24-hour basis for our travelers and for our goods. It cares for our patients in our clinics, in our society, and in our hospitals. It is a state that was able to efficiently secure the 2010 World Cup. It is a massive machine with massive potential, but its inefficiencies still hobble it. And these are very well documented. You're very familiar with the problems of service delivery, especially at local government. And just this morning, I heard of the problems again in Northwest. You switch on any radio station or television station, and you hear complaints on a daily basis. In 2010 alone, we suffered from 585 service delivery protests across the country. The reports of the Auditor General and the Public Service Commission paint a dim picture of non-compliance in our administration. Just last year, the Auditor General found that only 117 of a total of 536 audited government entities received a clean audit. And this includes only 3 out of 38 national departments and only 3 out of 95 provincial departments. At local government, the situation is much worse. Only 4 out of 28 municipalities in the Northwest received a clean audit. And 17 out of 55 municipalities in the Eastern Cape qualified audit. And only 2 out of 30 municipalities in Limpopo received an unqualified audit. The story goes on, grimmer and grimmer. All these are indicative of a governance problem that needs to be solved and solved very urgently. The country has achieved much, but we still have grand plans for the country, and it is for this reason that we need to put so much emphasis on ensuring that we put our efforts on getting this right, this machinery. To lay a solid basis for going forward, we in public administration have identified, amongst many, 3 of the priorities that we would like to share with you this morning. Firstly, our relationship with labor is on good course. For too long and for too many years, a great deal of energy has been absorbed, time lost and money lost in pursuing matters that could easily have been achieved differently. We have now a 75% endorsement by labor, who have adopted a service charter, and I was hoping it would be on your table. We have been working on this for the past 6 months. It is a very significant step for us, which commits us to a common purpose, where both of us, representing the employer and the employee, will speak the same language of ensuring that public servants work a full day, diligently, conscientiously, and deliver services to the public on time. Because that is what they're employed to do, and that is what they're paid to do, and because it is the right thing to do. We have a responsibility to our people. That is why our ethos is underpinned by Batupeli, people first. The service charter will be launched very soon, and we are extremely proud of the work that we have covered. And clearly, the 3-year agreement was a masterstroke, even though we have to say it ourselves. The second of our priorities is a constitutional responsibility that is laid out in Chapter 10 of the Constitution about what kind of public service we should have. These fundamental principles apply to all 3 spheres of government, and we have found in our experience that while some of these principles are adhered to by the 2 spheres of government, they do not sufficiently apply at local government. This is a very important sphere of government, as you all know, because this is the closest to our people. This is the closest to service delivery. We believe there is an essential obligation of government to align all three spheres of government to make an efficient, single set of norms, standards, and values, but operating at three different spheres that are independent. We are convinced that we need to get this right, and we will be able to deal with some of the crises that we have, especially at local government. The third matter that we are seized with is that which we have vehemently determined to do, that is break the back of corruption. This government is built on the lives of heroes who gave so much. They believed in the principles and values driven by morality. There is no place in any part of our government for any tolerance of any kind of corruption, whatever its nature. The ruling party has been very emphatic on this matter, especially at its last elective conference. And government and its various entities have responded to the clarion call to ensure that we eradicate corruption wherever it raises its head. Government has put in place a number of strategies to deal with corruption at various levels. We in the public administration intend to put in place, at the soonest possible time when the legislation is passed, an anti-corruption bureau that will deal with all levels of government and the public servants therein. In particular, what I want to emphasize is the first point that we are targeting is that mobile, corrupt government employee who will run away from facing charges in one province and seek employment in another province and be appointed in that other province. The message this corrupt mobile public servant carries with him is, I can do it and I can get away with it. We have identified this as an important loophole, and we put a stop to it because we will now have one central database that will help us contain this abuse of an existing loophole. In line with our anti-corruption drive, we have taken a decision also, and very importantly, that no public servant will be allowed to do business with government. We never as a government intended that public servants will do business with government. We are now moving to create an environment where the possibility of corrupt practice does not even exist. At this point, I'd like to deal with two central issues that need to be emphasized at this breakfast. One, within the public service, corruption exists at two levels. The first one is a level of direct bribery of officials, and the second one is the corruption of procurement processes. Bribery of officials normally involves all of us. I want to repeat, all of us. All of society, and invariably involves the frontline public servants, especially law enforcement officers and public servants who give us our rights. Here, it involves a public servant with the power over services that are free and should be given to everybody. It involves a law enforcement officer. And it involves a relatively intimidated citizen who would do anything to get his or her rights or to get away from sanction. Here, the citizen is ever so willing to offer a bribe to a corrupt official. Our message to you this morning, and using this platform, to our citizens, is very clear, that offering and paying a bribe is corrupt practice, and it is illegal and carries a heavy penalty. Do not bribe a policeman. Do not bribe a traffic officer. Do not bribe a public servant. Because if you do, you are not only encouraging corrupt activity, you're committing a serious crime. Every frontline public servant is obliged to wear a badge identifying himself or herself. Your responsibility as a responsible citizen, when asked for a bribe, is to report this officer or public servant. We'll spend the next 3 months explaining to the public the how of this reporting. For now, the message is, don't bribe our officials, because you're continuing corruption. And for the officials themselves, we will deal with you when we find you. We have the means how. The second part of corrupt practice happens within the state procurement processes, and this is where the state bleeds millions of rands annually. This again involves two categories, the corrupt official and the corrupter, usually from the private sector. The corrupter from the private sector has gotten away with this for too long. We are now putting in place mechanisms to ensure that we close the circle and the private sector and the private corrupter. He is the most lethal poison in this corrupting game, the corrupter. On the other hand, it involves, I'd like to think, a relatively vulnerable but greedy and potentially corrupt state official. As I have said already, we have systems in place to deal with this vulnerable, greedy, corrupt state official. But my message at this breakfast, the second one, is to the private sector. Think very carefully before you consider bribing my officials, because we're going to find you. We have the means, and the consequences for you are going to be very dire for the rest of your life. At this point, I'd like to commend the government of Mpumalanga, which has already blacklisted 238 companies in line with our attempts to stop the private sector corrupting our officials. I want to urge all other provinces to follow suit. We have grabbed the nettle of corruption. National Treasury is in the process of putting in place a more efficient and transparent process of procurement, and therefore each tender process will be an open process. As the Secretary General of the ANC is wont to say, government is no longer a tender state. It is normally at this point that I get asked the question, oh yeah, so you're after the private sector, you're after the poor, vulnerable public servant, what about the corrupt politician? There are laws in this country, and these fall squarely within the mandate of the criminal justice system. And the definition of corruption in our laws covers all persons. Furthermore, the ANC has established an ethics committee to investigate allegations of corruption against any ANC politician. We hope all political parties will follow the same route. These avenues exist. Use them. The fourth of our priorities is something that has bedeviled us, and that is the efficiency of our public service for a long time. We seek to professionalize our public servants. To have an efficient, capable state, we need to have an efficient, professional public service. To this effect, we are establishing an already well-articulated concept of a school of government, which every public servant is required and expected to attend and pass a number of courses to progress in their career. Extensive work has already been done to put this in place, and discussions have taken place with academics across the country. Powering all our systems for greater efficiency is a new strategy we have worked on with SETA. SETA now has a competent board with vast experience in corporate governance. It has a new, dynamic, very competent, widely respected chief executive officer. I'm very optimistic about its future and the task to ensure that there is compliance with the SETA Act. Having said all of this, the question you might be asking is, we've heard this before, so what's new? I'll tell you what's new. What's new is our understanding of the urgency of doing this, even at the extent of repeating myself. Unless we get government administration sorted out, our plans remain in jeopardy. What is new is that we all agree on this matter, which is prioritized and well documented in the National Development Plan. What is new is the experience we bring to this environment. What is new is our determination. What is new is that we're going to use every platform to call on all of you to help us get it right. The perpetual achievement of the impossible is what we are continuously striving for. There is no gainsaying the fact that the future does not explode into our lives. It is being created and recreated by actions we take on a daily basis. It follows, therefore, that the best way of determining the future is by continuously creating it every day. We are called on to imagine a different future, away from the past that was both ugly and repulsive, and the present that threatens to mortgage the future of our children and country. The future envisaged in the National Development Plan and our Constitution is full of promise, hope, and unbridled possibilities. You, as the citizens of this country, play an extremely important role in ensuring that we succeed. I thank you.
Very much indeed, Minister. Thank you. Right, ladies and gentlemen, there we go. I think we certainly can feel the energy and the enthusiasm that Minister has for transforming the public service, and she talked about a number of things that perhaps we can after the break. 3 priority areas that she talked about: labour relations, the alignment of the 3 spheres of government, anti-corruption. I guess that's a big one for all of us, because that's one that certainly has affected everybody. But at the end of the day, we need a capable and efficient, skilled public service if any of our plans need to go forward. And I think that's a message that keeps coming through. So let's engage with Minister after the break. Get your messages through, get your questions through, and let's get into these issues. That's all coming up right after this. Stay with us.